bigger than Pasitao, but it's his opportunity also to win his first trophy at international level, and we are very happy to have him here. He's one of the key players in both matches, Nigeria and in the centenary celebration match. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Coach, and Pasitao. You owe us big time this coming weekend. We want you to put a smile on the faces of the people of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. Can we hand over to Ramos just to tell us what the match means to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund?
Thank you very much, Dominic. Thank you, President Safa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be sitting next to the President and to Safa and to rekindle a professional relationship once more. As known in my previous life, or my capacity as President of SASCOC, I did a lot with Safa and with the President. And so it's great to once again do that. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll know that the life of this event is as old as our democracy, and that this cup was conceived in the lifetime of President Mandela himself, and now it serves as a beacon of his legacy, the legacy of his work. So it gives us particular pleasure to, firstly, to have had this enduring relationship with Safa of 24 years. That spans 24 years. And you'll see in your press kits there the matches over the years that has been taking place. The foundation touches probably a special part of the former president's life. As you know, that he had a particular affinity to children, and he said to this organization to carry that passion he had for children post his lifetime, that we can continue to make meaningful interventions in making the lives of children better, in investing in children so that they have better future as adults. So this is not just about us and here today. What we do with the foundation speaks to what the future of the country will look like, because if we make the right interventions with young people today, we secure our collective future as a country. So that's the importance of this work, and to the extent that this event has been a constant annual contributor financially, and also in terms of keeping the work of the foundation in the public space. It's something that we most absolutely appreciate as trustees of the fund. As you know, one of the flagship projects that the late president wanted to achieve was a children's hospital. And this fund, the Children's Fund, was beholden to see that dream come true. And as you know, it has come true. But of course, we have to keep maintaining the children's hospital. We have to keep it as a world-class facility. And that takes resources. So we hope that this relationship will continue to contribute to that. So in conclusion, Dominic, we want to call on all South Africans to heed this invitation for this match, especially in the centenary year of Madiba's memory that the country has been celebrating over the years. Let's flock on Tuesday and the 20th at the Manchester Mabhida Stadium, partly because I think Bafana Bafana will win, and partly because we'll celebrate a great life and a great leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramos. Now can we hand over to the CEO? You have nothing more to add?
I actually have nothing more to add. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. President. It's fantastic to be here, except to just add my words of thanks to South Africa for having continued to carry the legacy of Dr. Nelson Mandela. He never did anything for himself. And it's important for us to remember that he set up the Children's Fund using a third of his salary. which for the duration of his presidency he gave away. So it's ready to say, to the generations to come, this is not an organization that's here to go, but this is an organization that's here to ensure that we safeguard our future. And I think my director, my board of trustees have represented us in no way that I can't add any more. And I just want to introduce another board member who's present, Victor Nossi, who's also been on our board for a long time. And the presence of board members is just to ensure that we are accountable at all times. And of course, my colleague Mbaki is also here. Thank you very much.
If you ask for me, I can just ask the coach to address the media. Coach, we are meeting in Nigeria on Saturday and Paraguay on Tuesday. What a week.
Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, before I answer your question, Dom, I think it's very appropriate and hugely fitting that the Nelson Mandela Trophy and Mandela's legacy of investing in the future, and in particular with children, that we as an organisation, as a team, as a player, as a coach, we are given the opportunity to invest in ourselves. And through having an opponent like Paraguay or Argentina or Brazil. And I think that's hugely fitting that we then take that and invest that international playing time into our younger players, especially players like Percy, who will represent South Africa for a long time and hopefully play major tournaments, and will be better equipped to play in those tournaments because of this sort of experience. So I think it's hugely fitting that the Mandela Trophy is structured the way it is, and I thank you wholeheartedly on behalf of the players and myself. Thank you. We do have Nigeria first, the small matter of an Afcon qualifier. Everybody knows the list of injuries that we've had. Everybody knows what I said in the first press conference, that despite that I want to speak about the players that we do have, because even though we respect Nigeria, we do not fear them. And I think we have still enough talent, enough desire, and if we can structure a game plan over the next 3 or 4 days, I think that by the time we run out at the FMB, I think we will be confident, but we will not be complacent, because Nigeria have just come from a World Cup, undefeated since we beat them last time, and they will certainly want to wreak their revenge. So we will be ready, and I still believe that we have a very good chance of getting the result that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Let's take the questions. How we structured is that let's take the questions regarding the Nelson Mandela Challenge, and then we finish with that one, and then we talk about the Bafana Bafana Nigeria game. Let's go.
Mr. President, just in terms of the choice of opponent for the Mandela Challenge, what informs that? And also the second question of that is the venue. The Moses Mabhida Stadium, will there be any grass left by the time you play it? Because the venue seems to be overused.
Well, we saw the patches on Saturday. I'm sure they will be able to fix it. It's always been a good venue, both from the point of view of the facility and the pitch itself, but also the support base has been very good. And so we return home to a happy underground for us. And we look forward to the match, and particularly because of the significance of this match in Durban.
And the choice of opponents, Paraguay?
Well, it's always, if you look at all of the matches that we played in Nelson Mandela Challenge, you will see that because we are part of CAF, the qualifications will always involve an African team. And sometimes we looked outside of the continent because of the lack of opportunities for South African teams or Bafana to play against opposition outside the continent. And the Nelson Mandela Challenge always provided that opportunity. So we played France, we played the Netherlands, we played Argentina, we played Brazil, we played Paraguay, looking outside the continent for most of the opposition. And I think it's an opportunity. I think it's the first time that Percy Tau will play a team outside the continent. So it'll be a good experience for him to play against South American opposition. And we welcome that, and I'm sure that you'll tell us after the match what was the experience like.
Coach, you've got a second opposition.
Ramos doesn't know which organization you work for.
So I'm in the transfer market. Which organization I should put down? But Mazola Mulefe from Independent Media. Coach, you obviously bemoaned in the past not having a second opposition after qualifier. Obviously, what wouldn't have been possible with Seychelles back to back, but you didn't have one after Libya. And you know what? I'm sure you're relieved. What are the possibilities? What are the expectations in terms of changing things around there?
Well, the expectations, Mazola, are that we use the event for the development of our players, development of a team, bring a team closer together, give them the experience that they're going to need if they're going to play major tournaments, and try to develop the youngsters that we have. I would have liked to bring on board more younger players. The protracted nature of the opponent venue, is it on, is it off? I think that's probably prevented me from bringing on too many youngsters, but the younger players that we have, and also the injuries, the Keegan Dolly and people like that, you'd want them to be here as well to experience that. But we will try and do our best to make sure that we get as much out of the event as we can. And I think it's really important that we do have this game. And this is, from a coach, obviously for the development aspect, but as the President has said, just the significance of the game is also very, very important that we do it give it the status that it deserves.
Musibili writes at KFM, questions for President, and I'm not sure whether the CEO or Dr. Mashishi will answer. You made mention of the first Nelson Mandela Challenge in 1994, which we all remember with fond memories. Maybe you just want to take us back down memory lane, Mr. President, because Bafana Bafana have historically always played well in the Nelson Mandela Challenge and always got results, and perhaps it has something to do with the occasion of 1994 and that very special inauguration day. And then, Dr. Mashishi, are we able to quantify over the years the funds that have been raised through the Nelson Mandela Challenge that have gone into the Children's Hospital? And before I say that, let me just move over to
Your first question is the President of the...
No, let them answer.
I'll defer to the CEO.
Oh, you defer to the CEO. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I must say, even though we have our financials, we haven't quite calculated how much we have spent, we have used from this match to the work of the Children's Fund, which is the Children's Hospital. But annually, the Children's Fund works with a number of community organizations. If you've noticed, you might have seen us with the Youth Summit in Parliament in July. And that was to say there's a Mandela in every generation. So you saw those generations of 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds showing their own Mandela sense. And so we support that kind of work. We also support a lot of work. We have a footprint throughout the country in the work that we do. I hate to say youth leadership as if young people want to be led, but youth opportunity to lead is what we do. We give young people an opportunity to lead in all kinds of ways, and that it would include children as young as 10. They'll be given the opportunity to engage in order to build the kind of society that Mr. Mandela would have envisaged. So that would be our youth work, but we also do work around early childhood development to ensure that they grow and they develop, but also keeping our schools safe. And I think a great deal of our last few years has just been trying to keep children safe in our schools, which has not been something that's as guaranteed as you would want it to be. What do we spend every year? We spend very little on ourselves because we are a simple organization of about 20 people. We spend mostly on communities on the ground, and that would account for about 10 million rand in a year that goes out into community organizations, churches, youth organizations, and so on, that we all work together in order to create the Mandelas. The Mandelas are deliberate. They're not a miracle. They happen because the society is intentional about how it grows young people. And that's one of the intentions we have in growing young people and young talent, and giving them an opportunity not to be leaders tomorrow, but to lead right now. And I know I answered a direct question, which I can because I just go back to my books, but we do have our annual report, which will give you our funding from inception, 1994, to where we are today.
If you listen to the president was to take us down the memory lane.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say we're very proud of the achievement of the Nelson Mandela, particularly the hospital. Completed one of the expressed desires and hope for this country to have a children's hospital. So we must congratulate them, the CEO and the board, for making that a reality today. Of course, our team, Bafana, has always performed at their best in Nelson Mandela Challenge. And you remember that after the 1994 match against Zambia, then in 95 the rugby Springboks won the World Cup, and then in 96 we won the Afcon Cup of Nations, and then there was this whole question of Madiba's magic, and suddenly the players believed that if Madiba is in that stadium, you're not going to lose. And we did the same when we lost the 2006, but in 2010 we wanted Madiba in Zurich because we thought that if Madiba is in Zurich, we're going to win the right to host the World Cup. And he came, and we won. So there was something there about Madiba's presence in the stadium. We played against France. France were the world champions, and Madiba was there. And we played 0-0 against Thierry Henry, Trezeguet, all of them. It was just Marcel Desailly. They were world champions, and we played a draw against them. So I think that we need Madiba's spirit for Nigeria on Saturday. But yeah, I think in sport there was this thing, and there's Neil Tovey sitting. They wanted Madiba to come to them always before the matches. And when Madiba comes and talks to them and is present in the stadium, we always had a positive result. And that shows in the opposition that we played and the results achieved in the Mandela Challenge. And the matches that we lost, he didn't come. The matches that he was there, we won or played a draw. So there was just something. And I think it is the team and the players played above themselves when he was present and in the dressing room and in the stadium. Really motivated them. So there's something to be said about Madiba's magic.
Can we take the last question with regards to the Nelson Mandela Challenge? And then we'll ask the coach to give us an update in the game. It's a kickoff.
Chair from kickoff. Coaches from the final, this is your first international game, or one African opposition game, since you've returned. How much does that change the complexion, if I may call it that, of this camp now, in preparing for an African powerhouse and then having to compare for a South American opposition on Tuesday?
Jan, I must be very, very honest and say that the preparations for the actual game, the Mandela game, will only begin the second that the Nigeria game's out of the way. We will not cloud the skies at all with thinking about me putting stuff onto the players about Paraguay. We will play Nigeria, we'll do the absolute utmost we can to knock them over, and then we have to scramble because we've only got a couple of days to show them a little bit of information. But I hope it's both inspirational and motivational for the players to meet different opposition. I mean, the question there about the amount of revenue that this has generated. It's difficult to quantify inspiration, isn't it? It's difficult to quantify empowerment and motivation. And I guess that when Mandela said it's this time that everybody should reach for the stars, I think he didn't mean that we'll hand out rand. We hope that everybody that feels the Madiba magic will reach for the stars. And I think that's the advice to the players. Once we get Nigeria out of the way, then let's look at this as being a celebration, and let's look at this as being about putting ourselves out there and learning.
What is on the floor, Coach? Can you give the media the update in the camp so far?
Yeah, we had two scares really. We had one, Ronwin Williams. We got a call from John Patricius at the sports clinic saying that he'd had a slight knee strain and that they were going to examine him this morning. The ultrasound didn't find any tears, but it will take him, I think, 24 to 48 hours for it to settle. So he won't be training with us for the 48 hours, and we do hope it will settle. So that's a little bit of a scare, but we're not going to call in a third keeper. We're going to keep Roman because we think he's going to be okay. The second one was Tulani Serrero. We didn't receive anything from the club or from Tulani, but through media in Holland they said that he had an ankle injury. Well, we knew he was on the plane, but we didn't know anything about his injury, so we held our breath a little bit. When he got off, he said, "No, I've had a laceration. I've got 5 stitches in a gash. The stitches should come out today. Easy training today, should be okay for full training tomorrow." And we did after that get a doctor's report from Holland. So those two are not okay today, but they should be okay within 24, 48 hours. Apart from that, everybody's fit and raring to go.
Are all the players in camp?
They're all here now, yeah. Which is also unusual, so that's a positive.
Percy, you've been doing quite well in your new team, and you are here now having to represent your country against Nigeria in a very, very crucial match, and of course the one that follows. But just take us through the transition where Percy finds himself now, where you're playing at world stages, and then you're getting to be playing international opposition, top-class international opposition with the Bafana team. Where's your mindset to that?
Look, it's a privilege for me to be here and speaking about Mr. Nelson Mandela and having to participate in the tournament, but also having the opportunity to go to Afcon. So I just have a privilege to be here, and my mind is on trying to enjoy every moment, like the coach always say, and try and learn as much as I could. And it's going to be challenging, but with the help of my teammates, we can suffer all and we'll celebrate all. So I'm just focused on trying to do everything that we want to do on daily basis to get better and to form better unity in the team.
Yes, sorry, Marcel, let's give Titi the chance. Yes, Titi.
From ENCA. Coach, I'm not sure if you are able to give us an update in terms of the tickets, maybe you can help out there. But my question is around looking at the Soweto derby. I mean, the tickets were sold out in 2 hours, and then now this is probably the best game that Bafana Bafana is facing this weekend. Does it play a role in terms of the interest from the public? Whether the slow, does it affect the team at all?
I'm sure it affected our team when we went to Nigeria, and it was packed full of Nigerians, and they were very partisan and hostile. I'm sure that affected our players. And we'd like to think that they will get the same sort of welcome when they come to South Africa. I don't think it matters if the public at large think that we played well in our last game, or we were great when we played Nigeria away, or Paraguay is an interesting one coming up. This Nigeria game is big, its reputation is big, and I hope that because there are many South Africans that want us to win, that many will get themselves to the stadium and show Percy and the boys that they are behind them. So that's my hope, and that's my belief.
Can we take the last two questions? Tusha and Mr. Sowetan. Okay, we'll take 3 questions. Tusha and Mazola. Yes, Tusha.
To go back a bit to the president. Over the many years, we've seen Nigeria play Bafana Bafana, and it's always been beaten by Nigeria. But things have changed. But you know the history between these two teams. You know how we suffered at the hands of Nigeria, even the embarrassment we suffered. What can you say to the coach and the boys going to this crucial match against Nigeria?
Well, what can I tell them? They went to beat Nigeria in Nigeria for the first time. I think that compare. There is just something special, and of course Neil is sitting at the back there. The Nigerians are still hurting because they could not come to defend their trophy in 1996, and South Africa became the champions.
Nelson Mandela game. Few days later after that, I think there's a couple of clubs locally who have CAF obligations and they'll be playing the CAF. How are you going to deal with that, communicating with them? I think the coach is working.
Well, as you know, that international football runs on a 4-year cycle. The last cycle ended 2018 Russia World Cup, and the next cycle is to 2022. And obviously the coach knows that. And therefore, every player in the squad today, you must add 4 years to his age, which means that you must think of renewal so that those players must not be 40 by the time you come 2022. The coach understands that, and you. qualification of the 2022 World Cup. And we are comfortable, and we can see the emergence of bright young talent in all of our teams.
As far as the game against Paraguay is concerned, I think it's important that we've spoken about having a positive relationship with the clubs. I've travelled around, I've visited all the clubs, I've visited even clubs in the lower divisions, and I think it's really important that we have an understanding whereby they will help us if they can, and we will help them if we can. And I think that balance, without being detrimental to the success of the national team, we have to have that little bit of feeling that if I was the coach at one of those clubs, I wouldn't want my players to play 90 minutes and then another 90 minutes. I would expect the coach to have a little bit of feeling for South African football in general and say maybe these couple, they can play a half in one and half in the other, for example. So we'll approach it with that in mind, and it's not a point that's lost on anybody. It's something we think about.
Thank you, Coach. The last question from the man who is on the market. He's on the move, by the way. He's a living star.
Oh.
And he won't tell you where he's going. He hasn't told me yet.
Is the shirt an indication where he's going?
Answer the question. Is it hinted where you are heading to?
I will tell you after the press conference. My question is to Percy and to the coach. To Percy, I think you came off the bench when South Africa beat Nigeria for the first time in a qualifying match. The front line that you're playing with, obviously Duke is not available, Manyama is injured, Keegan is injured. Are you feeling the responsibility to meet the line? Obviously Lebu is there, he's looking sharp and like he can help Bafana get the goals. And to the coach, Nigeria have reportedly had some injury scares of their own. Does that play a role in how you prepare the team, or it doesn't factor at all?
Look, I believe everyone in the team has a huge responsibility to the national team and to the coach. I personally, one of the players that try and do their best to try and win all the games. And then I share that responsibility with my team.